Living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
Despite ongoing research, questions remain about one of the most common neurological diseases in the world, multiple sclerosis or MS. It can strike anyone at any time. More than 2 million people worldwide live with MS. We don't know what causes it. There's no cure. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm your host, Sarah Medley. Today we try to understand MS better. Stay with us. Welcome back. Joining us first this morning is Heidi Kinner, who was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis or MS about 4.5 years ago. Heidi, thanks for being on our show and being so willing to share your experiences with us.
I'm glad to join you and offer any advice I can to those struggling with MS right now.
Okay. So before we talk about that important topic of MS, can you tell us about yourself? Talk about you and who are you?
Absolutely. Well, I grew up in England, although was born in Colorado, and after college went to the Marine Corps, and then after that went to seminary and am now an Episcopal priest, and I've served churches around the country, and I'm currently serving a small parish in Florida.
So you get to spend part-time in Florida and part-time in Montana.
I do, which is a wonderful life and a great blessing with my disease, actually.
I bet it is. So let's talk about the symptoms of MS. So what were some of those first symptoms?
My first really noticeable symptom in November 2013, my right arm went numb. I couldn't feel anything. And I initially thought I must have pinched a nerve in my neck when I was working out. But after it didn't resolve after a couple of weeks, I went to my primary care doctor who sent me for some x-rays and noticed something strange on my spinal cord. And he was concerned that my cancer might have come back. So we then went on to the next treatments from there. So that right arm was really my first main symptom.
So after that symptom, and then you went to the primary care physician, so what more aggressive test did the physician order and did you have done?
After the x-ray, they sent me for an MRI, and they took the images of my brain and of my cervical spine, and that showed some lesions. And with that then, they had a lumbar puncture done, which is with a hollow needle, and they take some fluid out of your spine. And at that point, my neurologist, with the symptoms and all the results of the tests, was able to confirm a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis.
So from the onset of that symptom to diagnosis, how long was that?
It was less than 2 months.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Is that typical, do you think, that short amount of time?
It doesn't seem to be, from much that I've read in other MS patients that I've talked with. MS, I think, is a very difficult disease to diagnose because so many of its symptoms look like a number of other diseases or just smaller problems. And so I think for many people it can take longer. I was very fortunate to have a primary care physician who had a number of other MS patients, and so was kind of on the lookout for that. And then a wonderful neurologist who really jumped on getting tests done so that we could get a quick diagnosis and begin appropriate treatment.
So what are you doing to manage your MS?
So my main management tool is a drug called Copaxone, and that's an injection that I do 3 times a week. And that slows the progression of the disease, essentially. Beyond that, we occasionally have to manage symptoms. Bladder infections are common, and I've had to do just management for several of those. But overall, I'm doing very, very well, and I think in part because of the quick diagnosis.
So I've read about depression being part of the diagnosis of MS and part of the symptoms. So can you talk about that? Did you experience depression?
I think mild depression for the first little bit, and sometimes depression with MS seems to be related to the actual course of the disease, and sometimes it's just a reality of getting a diagnosis of a chronic illness that you will have for the rest of your life. I think that mine was the latter, and I was very fortunate though to have lots of really good friends to talk to and to pray with, and really helped me work through that sadness of a chronic illness.
When you think back over the last 4.5 years, what's the most difficult thing that you've really had to experience or deal with?
I think for me it's been the fatigue. Fatigue is a very common symptom with MS, and it's different than just feeling a little tired. It's that just debilitating. It doesn't matter how much you slept, you're suddenly exhausted. And having been a Marine Corps officer, I kind of grew up always just being able to push through, but I can't do that any longer. And so I've had to adjust my life somewhat.
So when you think about the future, and what do you think about, what do you look forward to?
You know, my husband and I will often talk about what's in 10 years or 20 years of retirement, and sometimes my brain will go to the worst case what ifs. Well, what if I can't walk in 20 years? And so we plan, but we also know we may have to adjust. But I think more than anything, we just take each day as the gift that it is and try and live that to the fullest and not worry about all of the what ifs.
And take your naps?
Yes.
On a regular basis.
I do.
That's wonderful. Heidi, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with our audience.
Thank you, Sarah.
In a lot of ways, MS is a mysterious and frustrating disease. But what do we know about it, and who's at risk for developing it? We'll talk about that and more right after this short break. Stay with us.